We'll see some older alders in the forest too. But this is what a young one looks like. Try to get close to a leaf of the red alder too. Of course, the red alder had medicinal uses traditionally, and it's not used so much today. Alnus rubra, and it has these sort of thick leaves with pretty prominent veins and teeth. You know, it's heavily toothed. And when it gets older, the bark remains smooth. It doesn't actually get the furrows like cottonwood will, and gets a lot of lichens on it. So it gets kind of spotted, white, gray, tan look to it. And it was the bark that was used medicinally. It had a number of different uses. So, excuse me, the bark was for sores, for some lung issues, stomach problems, colds, and tuberculosis. So it had quite a wide variety of uses. And growing right under a number of the alders is the bracken fern, which of course was an important food source. Not used much today because it was found to have carcinogens in it. But the root and the fiddleheads were eaten. Of course, bracken branches, unlike our other ferns that we're going to come across today. There's just so many plants to show you. Indian plum right here, or osaberry is another name for it. These are not ripe yet. They look more like baby apricots, but they will look more like little baby plums. They're going to turn purple when they're ripe. This leaf that's kind of lance shape and pretty soft compared to some of when people think of look-alike as like cascara. Leaves might look a little similar, but the texture is really different. Just pretty soft, not super shiny. And these are edible. They taste a little bit like a fruity cucumber, but they're very small. They don't really get much bigger than this, and they have a big seed. Speaking of cascara, I'm actually going to backtrack and find one, which is around the corner here, if you want to call this a corner. So you can see that white tan bark. That is actually a cascara rather than an alder, although the bark looks very similar. It's quite smooth. And here are the leaves. So they don't have that really jagged edge, the teeth of the red alder, but it does have the very prominent veins. And starting to get fruits. So these will look like little dark berries, which the birds go for. We don't. It's not ones that we eat. But this has had a commercial use medicinally as a laxative. Unfortunately, that does a lot of damage to the tree because it's the bark and it's being overly used. So it's one that I believe is on the UPS watch or at-risk list. So it's not one that I recommend harvesting. There's lots of plants that are actually really good for laxatives. So this is one that we can let the wildlife enjoy. One of the early bloomers is this beautiful bleeding heart. It's now starting to go to seed. It looks like a little pea. It's actually not in the pea family. It's like sort of lacy, really beautiful, delicate leaves right here, and it will sometimes form like these dents. You can see lots of it out there, of the western bleeding heart. And that was used historically for like toothaches. It's a nervine, so it does help dull pain. And it was also used for the worm medicine. It is really strong, so it's not one that I recommend students just go out and start, making an extract out of. It's one you'd really want to know and understand all of its constituents and the amounts that are appropriate. But I'm really pointing it out more for historical use. And also, this is one that the hummingbirds like. And it's a Northwest native that we see all over the forest floor, so it's one just to become familiar with. You can see those white flowers in there. I don't really want to walk in and trample it, so I think we'll probably find some more later, but that's thimbleberry. and we'll try to get a closer look to a closer plant. This is a Douglas fir. Get up close to the bark first. Really textured bark, really very deeply furrowed or fissured. This is one of our fastest growing conifers. It's used a lot by the timber industry for that reason. It can grow in full sun. It's one of the pioneering species of conifers rather than western red cedar or western hemlock that are later succession. This is one of my favorite wilderness teas. It are the leaves of the Douglas fir. So it's got its new growth. You can also make tea out of the older leaves for culinary purposes. Sometimes this can be added to cooking or making like a sorbet out of the Douglas fir. I've made Douglas fir tip ice cream. You can do that with Sitka spruce as well. And the tea, especially combined with trailing blackberry, which I'll show you momentarily, is really good. None of the conifers are appropriate for pregnant women. That may also apply to nursing moms. I would say anybody who's pregnant or nursing, you're going to be learning all about that in your courses of what's appropriate and what's not. But a sort of baseline is err on the side of caution. And also people with kidney issues. Any conifer tea should not be steeped too long. It releases all the volatile oils. And so I do a short steep and only steep with the needles or like western red cedar leaves once. But these are also a nice little trail snack. So I'm going to pick one and thank the tree. Thank you. So Douglas fir. It looks similar to a Sitka spruce. The leaves do. So one of the ways to tell is just by touching. And this is soft to the touch. The ends of them are rounded, but not particularly sharp and pointed, where the Sitka spruce, if you wrap your hand around it, it will like, poke. On the back, you can see the lines, sort of the white lines of stomata. And you can see that also with the western hemlock. The genus of the Pseudotsuga means like false hemlock. They can look a little similar. These needles are less flat and they're quite a bit longer. And the bark's quite a bit different too. But you can make tea and eat the tips of both of them. We're going to walk across the field and go into the forest entrance. My neighbors are making a bunch of noise, so just get the machinery in the background, but also some birds. So right here at the entrance is that trailing blackberry that I wanted to show you. So this one is a native blackberry, and here's of course the Himalayan blackberry, which is not native and quite invasive. The Latin name of the trailing blackberry is Rubus ursinus, which means like bramble bear. So the rubus means bramble and the ursinus means bear. And I'm not sure why it was named that, but I'm quite sure that the bears would really enjoy these berries. They tend to really gorge on many different types of berries. And this is the first blackberry that will become available this summer. So they're already flowering. And yeah, one of the first ones to look out for. This one